Okay, folks, I'm re-recording this podcast on plastic pollution and the global treaty that is still not finalized. Uh, why am I re-recording it? That's the main point, I guess. It was incredibly noisy. After recording, I always flip through it, and unfortunately, I missed that some sections were fairly noisy and somebody complained. Sorry about that, but here we are. Let's do it again. You all have heard of plastic pollution, and most of it ends up in the ocean, and now it's all the way into the bottom of the ocean, and it's in fish we eat, and of course we are breathing, drinking, and eating microplastics as well. And there's some debate about whether it really made it to the brain and across the brain-blood barrier and so on, but do we really need to make sure that it is happening to see that this is a big menace that we should deal with? So this is the IUCN International Union of the Union for the Conservation Network, or some such thing you can look up. Marine plastic pollution, this was reviewed last in 2021, and the numbers have only gotten worse by now. So there is the new plastic production, and then there is the plastic waste. Obviously, plastic waste numbers can be higher than the new production because we are recycling some of it and trashing a lot of it, right? So over 300 million tons of plastic are produced every year. It's a miracle material, very useful. COVID came and we started using more and more of it, and we just don't know how to get rid of it because we throw it around everywhere. At least 14 million tons of plastic end up in the ocean every year, and plastic makes up 80% of all marine debris found from surface waters to deep sediments. Marine species ingest and or entangled by plastic debris. You will see a lot, in the olden days you used to show these six-pack nets that are used to hold beer and soda, and they ended up being caught around the necks of various marine animals. Nets catching dolphins and other fish and hurting precious species. Now it's all about microplastics and macroplastics, much more than those big pieces. They are also still going on. Plastic pollution threatens food safety and quality, human health, coastal tourism, and contributes to climate change. So you can look at my other podcasts on how that's happening. There is an urgent need to explore new and existing legally binding agreements to address marine plastic pollution, and such an agreement since then has been underway, negotiated, but it's not final yet. The pathway by which plastic enters the world's oceans, this is from our great resource, Our World in Data, which I just steal because I'm just offering free education and they are freely available online. Global primary plastic production, 270 million tons per year. But if you look at plastic waste, global plastic waste, it's 275 million tons per year. So it can exceed primary production in a given year, since it can incorporate production from previous years as well. So plastic is wasted after a year, let's say, but also these numbers probably have jumped up by now. I'm re-recording this in 2026 April. Coastal plastic pollution is 99.5 million tons per year. Mismanaged coastal plastic waste is 31.9 million tons per year, and plastic in surface waters is 10,000s to 100,000s of tons. Plastic inputs into the ocean about 8 million tons per year. All these numbers obviously have uncertainties, but here you have 2 billion people living within 50 kilometers of the coastline, and this number will keep increasing. It's expected that 50% of the population will live within 50 kilometers of coastal oceans by 2050. Some such projections exist, but everybody loves the water, everybody loves to be near coastal waters. Where does plastic accumulate in the ocean then? Macroplastics are greater than 0.5 centimeter in diameter, and microplastics are smaller than 0.5 centimeter. And shorelines, so 1950 to 2015, 82 million tons of macroplastics, 40 million tons of microplastics have accumulated. So you can see 60s to the 2010s, they have jumped up. Macro is in blue and micro is in red. Did the numbers really drop from 2000s to 2010s by so much, especially starting in the 1990s? Two-thirds of the buoyant macroplastic released into the marine environment since 1950 is stored close to the ocean's shorelines. A large part of the missing plastic problem is explained by plastic accumulation, burial, and resurfacing along shorelines. So the numbers are not necessarily reductions in plastic pollution added, but it's about where you are counting it. If you are looking at by age, in tons, and by location, then there is a circulation. There is the great garbage patch in the Pacific that's famous for accumulating plastic, and there are other regions where the great gyres in the oceans tend to congregate plastics as well. In the coastal waters, so shorelines are dry lands which get, some marine effects. Coastal shallow waters less than 200 meters. Total from 1950 to 2015, 150,000 tons of macroplastic, 80,000 tons of microplastic, and again, here are the numbers with the same unexplained missing plastic in microplastic dropping from 2000s to 2010, 2015. Offshore, greater than 200 meters, there are still numbers, and you can see they are larger than either of the, actually, this is in millions of tons, this is kilotons, and 150,000 tons, so the scales are not shown, but 114K is 114,000 tons, 350,000 tons, so you get the idea that we are you are putting everything into the ocean. You see a lot of signs on the drainage systems in cities and highways, etc., saying do not throw plastic away because it will end up around the necks of dolphins and turtles and so on, right? So there are ways in which they are being removed, or attempts are being made to remove them. There are cute robots going around in the ocean and trying to gather, but the amount is so much that our efforts are basically seriously lacking. So till about 2040, this problem is expected to continue to grow, and hopefully the global treaty will change the dynamic and bring about, producing new plastic with so much plastic waste doesn't make sense, and yet it seems almost inevitable at this point, so we'll see where we end up in the end. So polymer waste goes through some cycles, becomes taken up we either via biological degradation, so fungi and bacteria exist, and microbial biomass. So the other thing I should mention here, that all these floating plastic have become ecosystems of their own, because anything you put in the ocean can become a so-called FAD, fish aggregating device, because little things grow on them, bigger things come to eat them, and bigger fish and so on. So you get a ecosystem. Is that a good thing? Not necessarily. So we have to always see that nature makes the rules and biology finds the loopholes. So we will get biology in all sorts of places, but overall effect has to be considered in terms of climate impacts, health impacts, and so on. Secretion of extracellular enzymes, so microbial enzymes such as depolymerases, and depolymerases then do biofragmentation, produce macromers and monomers, and here you have some recycling back into visual biofragmentation. which is metabolized by microorganisms. Some can be useful molecules and some can be energies. So you produce CO2 plus H2O and some adenosine triphosphate ATP. So microbial biomass happens. As you know, oil spills are being degraded by synthetic bacteria which can consume hydrocarbons. So you go with a can of these microbes and then spray on the oil spills, and they do consume oil because it's a hydrocarbon. It's photosynthesized material that has metamorphized into oil and gas. So will same things happen with microplastics? People are looking for microbes naturally occurring or synthesized for consuming styrofoams and plastics. So styrofoams is another huge problem as well. There are also ideas on discovery and quantification of plastic particle pollution in human blood. I have other podcasts which argue that some of these results about plastics being found in significant quantities in human brain may be afflicted with detection problems, because when you want to take cells and separate plastics, there are processes you go through which can conflate plastic with other materials that are not plastic, other chemicals that are not plastic. You have to basically evaporate it and capture the gases and separate plastic contribution. So there are some controversies about the methodologies. Anyway, degradation methods can be mechanical, thermal, chemical, and biocatalytic. So here, mechanically, excuse me, I'm getting a phone call. I'm expecting it, so I'll pause this for 1 second. Pause. Okay, so sorry about that longish phone call, but you won't know from the recording. So we were talking about getting rid of plastic via biogeochemical methods. Mechanically, you would segregate them, grind them, crush them, etc. But poor quality recycled plastic gets produced. Thermally, these are treatment processes as opposed to mechanical separations. Treatment at high temperature or incineration, so can cause air pollution, toxic gas generation, energy consuming processes, and life cycle wise externalities can be costly. Chemically, acid alkali aminolytic treatment of wastes uses harsh chemicals, unsustainable process. So you are dealing with, rock and a hard place essentially. Biocatalytically, use polyethylene PET PET hydrolases at high temperature, environmental friendly, good quality recycled plastic. So can this scale up, especially when the pollution is already in the ocean and out there in the open, and so on. So it's tricky, but nonetheless, another way, Global Treaty on Plastic Pollution is maybe the way to go. So there is the introduction and about the resolution. This is not final yet, as I'm recording this in April 2026. Recently, United Nations Environmental Assembly voted to formulate an international legally binding instrument by 2024 to end plastic pollution, but 2026 is not final yet. The decision was taken at the UNEA session and was agreed upon by the representatives from 175 nations. We have to see who skipped it. The resolution identifies the threat that plastic pollution poses to human health and all environments. The threat that plastic pollution poses to human health and all environments. It focuses on the need to undertake measures throughout the life cycle of plastics in order to efficiently reduce their negative impacts. The overall theme of the UNEA session was strengthening actions for nature to achieve the sustainable development goals. It recognizes the role of the private sector and stakeholders in the implementation of the treaty. It promotes actions at local, regional, and global levels. It also identifies the importance of indigenous communities, which is always important because they are paying a price for it and they know what to do about it. So further, you look at economic impacts of plastic waste on economic losses, implications for animals, implications for human health, land pollution, groundwater pollution, invasive species, and so on. Obviously, people are mostly aware of the plastic problem. It's just that the system is not favoring a way to weed that out, or at least use plastic in a sensible way that we don't make it a big pollution problem. There are pros and cons. A uniform set of laws will apply to all countries, which should boost cumulative effort across the globe to tackle pollution. Enforcement will be an issue, of course, especially in the open ocean. Strengthens global drive to curb the plastic pollution of all types. Helps build a financial mechanism to boost the efforts. Not all countries could be able to abide by the treaty. It goes against the common but differentiated responsibilities principle in the sense under the Kyoto Protocol, and even now, the poor countries who didn't contribute to these problems, can they be given differentiated responsibilities? Well, that is a hard sell, but anyway, measures taken so far to tackle plastic pollution and ways forward. As consumers, we should ensure that all plastic waste leaving our homes is segregated, but there are issues about whether recycling is really happening and so on. Managing plastic waste requires effective knowledge, but there is rational ignorance where people know it's bad and still doing things that shouldn't be done. Citizens have to bring behavioral change and contribute by not littering and helping in waste segregation and waste management. So the system has to include incentives and norms and punishments. Startups and industries should think newer ways of recycling plastic. Plastic waste scenario in India, just to finally come to the local application where I'm sitting, recording this in India, IIT Kanpur. The previous one was done in IIT Bombay, where it's very hot, and I used to live with the windows open in my apartment, and that put in a lot of wind sound into the recordings, which is why I'm re-recording. But here it's dry heat, so I can manage better, and the winds are not so strong here. According to the Central Pollution Control Board in India, India generates close to 26,000 tons of plastic a day, and over 10,000 tons of plastic waste remains uncollected. India's per capita plastic consumption is less than 11 kilograms, and that is nearly a tenth of the United States of America. With per person, it is 109 kilograms. Does that mean India is doing better? Well, we are all in this together, so we should worry, not worry about differentiated responsibilities and just do what is needed to get rid of this menace. Okay, so I'm going to make a short on this. As you know, I'm summarizing all podcasts in shorts, so I will do that, but I will replace the posted podcasts with this new one prompto. Okay.